Hello and welcome to my new series on how to program in C#. It's for absolute beginners and I intend to take you through all the basics, but also as well some of the more advanced stuff. So let's get into it. Now we can write code anywhere, even on a piece of paper, but for it to actually do anything, we need something to help it compile, or basically convert it into zeros and ones the computer understands. So we use an IDE, or an integrated development environment. The main job of this software is simply to compile our code. However, it's also where we'll be writing our code, since it has loads of fancy features which makes writing it easier and much faster. Now, the IDE which I will be using is called Visual Studio, and I'll put a link to download it into the description, but you can just as easily follow along with any. Now, the first thing you want to do once you've got Visual Studio installed is just click Create New Project, select C# in this drop down, click Console App, click Next, give your project a name, I'll just call it Tutorial. Next again, check that it's on .NET 8.0 and then just click Create, nice and simple. Now once it's all loaded you should see something like this. Yours will probably look a lot smaller, I've enlarged it so you can see. You just want to delete what's already here at the minute, because we're going to go right from scratch to explain what everything does. However, having said that, there is going to be one line we have to write right at the start that you won't understand at the minute, but if we don't type it, our program won't run. And in a few episodes' time, I'll be going through what it means so that we can actually properly use it. So all you have to write is public class main, and then just create one of these fancy curly brackets. And you'll see automatically our IDE writes another one for us. That's just something it does that makes writing code faster. And then you'll also see if you press enter now, while your cursor was in between them, it automatically puts them on separate lines and gives you a tab, which is also just very useful. Now the first thing we're going to be looking at today is variables. So variables are basically containers of data that are stored in the computer's memory, either in the stack or the heap, although you don't need to know that for now. So anything from like the current amount of health you've got in a video game to what you're writing in an input field or something is all stored in a variable. And in C#, every variable has a type. And there's several built-in types, but we can even create our own types if we want. So let's go through all of the main built-in types. The first one is an integer, or just an int for short, and that stores any whole number. But unlike in maths, it also stores negative numbers as long as they're not decimals. So to create our variable, all we do is first write the type of our variable. So in this case it's going to be an int, stands for integer. And then we want to write the name of our variable. Now this literally can be anything, so you could put some crazy something or other in there. But I don't recommend it, because for clean code we want to know what every variable is for. Now in this case it's a bit different because this is just an example, but maybe for example this is going to store the current health. And you'll see that I abbreviated the word current. That's a fairly normal thing we do. As long as you know what it stands for, that's absolutely fine. You'll also see that on the first word it starts with a lowercase, but on the second word it starts with an uppercase character. So that's just our naming convention for variables in C#. Now, the next type of variable we'll look at is a float, or a floating point number. So if we write float, that's a very bad spelling. And this basically stores any decimal number. Now, I don't know what decimal number you want to store. I'm sure you could be more creative than me, but I'm just going to store pi or something. There you are. And you'll see, I forgot to mention this, but after every line, we always put a semicolon. And that just signifies that that's the end of an instruction. In this case, it's basically creating a variable called pi of type float. And C# is very good in that languages like Python, you don't specify when an instruction ends, but that also means you can only put one instruction per line. Whereas in C#, if I wanted to then create another float of something else, you can do that on the exact same line. And you can also put all sorts of crazy spaces and anything and format your code however you want, and it all works. Now let's go through the next type. So next we're going to have a char, which stands for character. Maybe we want to store the first initial of our name or something. So that's what I'll put. But this is very important that it does only store one singular character. If you want to store more than that, you want a string, or basically it stands for a string of characters, or what we generally classify as a piece of text. So I don't know, this could be our username, for example. And then the final variable type I want to look at is a bool, which stands for boolean, and it's basically always equal to either true or false. So a common example in a video game would be something like is grounded, or just is the player on the ground at the minute. Now, we've got all our variables at the minute, but they're pretty pointless because we never actually store a value in them, so they're just doing nothing at the minute. So, to fix that, if we want to store a value in a variable, very simply, we just go, after we've written the name of our variable, you literally just write an equal sign, and then you write the value that you want to store in it. So, current health. The minute, our player's got a lot of health. At the minute, it's got whatever that number is. Yeah. Pi, alright, well, that's actually got a fixed value. I better not mess it up. We'll just say 3.1915. I hope that's right. And you'll see, we've got a squiggly line beneath it at the minute. That means we've got an error. And it's literally just because when we have a float, to distinguish that from an integer, we have to put an F on the end of it, which I presume stands for float, but I don't know really. Now, initial, so with our character, it's a bit different. When we want to define a character, we have to put a singular speech mark, and then whatever it is, the first initial of my name is a J. I'll put that, and then always remember to close it. So there you are. And I forgot my equal sign, that's why it's giving me another error. And for a string, it's actually a bit different in that we need a double, that sort of thing. We need a double speech mark instead of a singular one there. And username, I don't know, Jarvis Crumps. And then finally, is grounded, we just say either true or false. I'll say false. And there you are, that's variables in C#. That's pretty much the basics of variables in C#. So my challenge for you today is literally just create more of these, store some strange things, whatever you want to do. Just practice getting this structure of creating a variable with a type and setting a value to it. Now, the next video, I believe, is going to be about functions, which is very interesting. So, I'll see you then. Bye.